way of introducing today's discussion. But I wanted to set out, at least to begin to set out, an ethical basis for action and describe a number of initiatives which I think have a bearing on today's meeting. I also want to speak from the perspective of a learned society professional body, recognizing that others are going to talk about the role of educators. So this is what I want to talk about. Should ethical concerns matter to professional bodies? Talk a little bit about diversity, equality and inclusion, looking at ethical professional behaviours and styles of leadership and what works best. As a scientific community, we're concerned with advancement of knowledge and understanding, both because of its intrinsic curiosity, but also, I would suggest, for the betterment of civil society. That endeavour will be most effective if it attracts the best minds, regardless of gender, social economic advantage or disadvantage, ethnicity or race, sexual orientation, physical or mental disability, and so on. As a community, we need to be inclusive, not exclusive, and it's salutary to ask the question, are we equally welcoming to all? In terms of this society, I think we recognise that there are inadequacies in what we do, and we're seeking to remedy that. And I'll tell you a little bit about that later. So in all of this, I suggest that we're actually trying to change behaviours. We're embarked on a journey. There are some quick wins, but the journey is actually going to take 10 or even more years. So, in terms of what I could call geoethics, the ethical basis to all of this, and the profession, why does it matter? I mean, we can do the right thing or appear to. It doesn't really have any great basis of, changing how we go about things. It doesn't really matter. It's vacuous. But putting aside just doing a good thing, if you like, talking from the heart, if we must, there are cogent business reasons for doing all of this, not least of which is actually sustaining membership and sustaining a skilled workforce. The Society has 12,000 members. 10,000 live in the United Kingdom, and they are predominantly white. We know that there are existing skill shortages in the geosciences here in the United Kingdom, if for no other reason than the UK border agency, in terms of preferred occupation, identifies geophysicists, hydrogeologists and others as areas of existing skill shortage. And those skill shortages will continue to grow for the foreseeable future. And I think they will grow even more if we think about some of the geoscience related matters of societal concern at the moment, where we have a contribution to make in terms of climate change, hazards, and so it goes on. So part of the question is, where is that additional workforce to come from? And then going back to what I said earlier, only by attracting the most able students from across society are we going to be able, or best able, to do that. And in terms of attracting diverse views, cultures, experiences, science should be open-minded and encourage and allow plural views. So this is what our membership looks like. But this is really about all we know about ourselves in terms of all of those various attributes of inclusiveness. We know that the proportion of female fellows is rising, but it's a very slow growth. Whilst we know about gender, we know very little in terms of our fellowship yet about, for example, ethnicity or disability. And in terms of reflecting the general population or the university population, the society is not representative of the wider society of which we are part. We just look at the moment in terms of UK university intake, just under 14% of students whose permanent address is in the United Kingdom enrolled on undergraduate courses or program in the physical sciences, all right? That's 14%. But 16.5% of that cohort of 16 to 24-year-olds in the UK, all right, are from BME. So there is underrepresentation. These are higher education statistics, the HESA figures. Surprisingly, just under 12% of those doing physical science at undergraduate level say they have a disability. So I think that that is just something that you might want to bear in mind. And physical science is just a big grouping in terms of that HESA data. How that relates to geoscience, I don't know. You may have a better idea than I. I want to tell you a little bit about the UK Science Council and its declaration on diversity, equality and inclusion. First of all, the Science Council brings together 41 separate scientific societies, all of whom have an interest in the professional practice of science. Last October, they issued a declaration on diversity, equality and inclusion. It was signed initially by 16 of its member bodies. It's now been accepted by 27 of those 41. And the hope is that all 41 of them will have signed up to this by this October. If I may, I just want to read the preamble of that declaration. It says, by promoting equality, diversity and inclusion, the Science Council and its member bodies will create greater opportunity for any individual to fulfill their scientific potential irrespective of their background or circumstance. In so doing, it will also help science to better serve society by attracting the widest possible talent to the science workforce and fostering a greater diversity of scientific ideas, research and technology. The Science Council is committed to widening participation in science education and the workplace. To this end, the Science Council and its member bodies declare a commitment to promote equality, diversity and inclusion through their communities and challenge prejudice and discrimination. This will require leadership from the highest level in the Science Council and its member bodies. As a leading voice in science and the application of science, the Science Council will therefore seek every opportunity to be proactive in promoting and communicating this vision to educators, employers, policymakers, opinion formers, and other publics. Okay? So, the Society signed that declaration, and as a signatory to it, what are we doing? As I said earlier, this is probably a decade-long transformation. But we need to put these sorts of thoughts, concerns at the heart of what we do. And a series of questions might be, are we welcoming? Are we open to all who satisfy the requirements of membership? Do we recruit from all social categories, backgrounds, and ethnic groups? Are we inclusive, or are we the preserve of the few? Do we attract the best? Are we representative of civil society, of the university population? I think that by and large the answer to most of those questions is no. So, first steps in all of this are, first of all, the declaration has to be owned by council, by which I mean the council has appointed a board level champion to work with the senior executive staff and to be accountable for improving practice and communicating our diversity strategies to our staff, membership, and other stakeholders. So we're planning and implementing a programme of work aimed at embedding the principles of equality, diversity, and inclusion into the current organisational policies, practices, and behaviours. As I said to you earlier, what do we know in terms of the demographics of our own membership and its representativeness, which inevitably means that we need to measure, assess, reflect in terms of this plan for change. And we also have to share that with the Science Council and other Science Council member bodies. Now, looking across the pond, the American Geosciences Institute has recently approved some guidelines for ethical and professional conduct. And the preamble to that says, geoscientists play a crucial role in ethical decision-making about stewardship of the Earth, the use of its resources, and the interactions between humankind and the planet on which we live. Geoscientists must earn the public's trust and maintain confidence in the work of individual geoscientists and the geosciences as a profession. AGI expects those in the profession to adhere to the highest ethical standards in all professional activities. Geoscientists should engage responsibly in the conduct and the reporting of their work, acknowledging the uncertainties and limits of current understanding inherent in studies of natural systems. Geoscientists should respect the work of their colleagues and those who use and rely upon the products of their work. And it goes on to identify behaviours, what is expected, both in terms of individuals, honesty, integrity, accountability, but also as members of professional bodies and of the scientific community as a whole. So, we in the Society have signed up to that AGI guidelines of ethical and professional conduct. But here's another AGI related statement on access and inclusion. And the preamble to that says, member societies of AGI, and we are committed to promoting educational and career opportunities to all geoscientists through proactive efforts that engage individuals with disabilities and reduce barriers to full inclusion. And it sets out a number of ways in which that might be done. And here's an image of an accessibility field trip by Chris last October in Vancouver, which says it can be done. So, here we are this morning. This conference, for you, access to fieldwork, confronting barriers. The purpose of this is simply to raise awareness. I say simply, it's not simple at all, but that's what we need to do. And following up on this discussion, this society, working with UK-domiciled, formerly known as CHUGDA, but also with our higher education network, will seek to advance the cause. So I think really what we're talking about is encouraging a culture of disclosure. How do you break down barriers? One of the aspects of this job is I go to lots of dinners. And I'm usually asked, do you have any dietary requirements? How often do we ask those attending meetings about physical or mental impairment? Should we? Now, I love AGU, and I just want to talk very briefly about their scientific code of conduct and professional ethics. That's what this 19-page document that was recently issued is all about. I have to disappoint you, there's nothing whatsoever to do about that. It's mainly about publishing ethics. It's a dense, visionless document which talks about sanction and doesn't anywhere talk about and pick up on the professed reason for writing it, which is a memorandum issued in March 2009 by President Obama, in which he stated, "Science and the scientific process must inform and guide decisions of my administration on a wide range of issues, including improvement of public health, protection of the environment, increased efficiency in the use of energy and other resources, mitigation of the threat of climate change, protection of national security." Right? So I would suggest that particular document is not fit for purpose. So really what we're talking about is leadership and what leadership styles will work best. As I said at the beginning, how can learned and professional bodies encourage ethical and inclusive behaviour? Issue a code, develop guidelines, share best practice, so it goes on. What works best? We might all agree that the images here, Mahatma Gandhi, Stalin, Margaret Thatcher, Martin Luther King, are contrasting in leadership types. And I will give a matchbox to anybody who can identify the image at the centre here, which is Helen Suzman, South Africa, the voice through a long period against apartheid. Right? So they're contrasting styles. And how do we behave now? Lead by example, enforce, or encourage? Which brings us to geoscience communication. And I'm coming back. Are we welcoming? Are we seen to be open-minded? Are we accessible? Do we actually welcome diverse views? How do we challenge preconceptions of what geologists are like? How do we break down barriers? I'll leave you with that question, because that is what is going to form the rest of the day. The question in the end is, what do we do? How do we communicate that? And how effective are we in it? Right? So thank you. Is there any immediate burning questions? I'd be happy to try to answer them, but there'll be lots of time for questions later. And here are some useful links, and if anybody wants, they may have a copy of my presentation. Okay, thank you for your attention. You're all quiet. I'm sure that's going to change. And we're a little bit over time. So without more ado, I'm going to welcome Chris H.